The uncharted frontier. Captain Lena Sorensen stood on the bridge of the TSS Endeavour, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen displaying the vast expanse of space before her. The Endeavour, flanked by its sister ships, Resilience and Unity, ventured deep into uncharted territories, far beyond the boundaries of Earth's solar system. Their mission was one of exploration and discovery, to push the limits of human understanding and find new frontiers for their species. Sorensen's crew, a diverse mix of scientists, engineers, and specialists, worked diligently at their stations, monitoring the ship's systems and analyzing the data streaming in from the advanced sensors. The air hummed with a palpable sense of excitement and anticipation, as each parsec traveled brought them closer to the unknown. A mysterious signal. As the fleet traversed the void, a sudden ping from the communications array caught the attention of Lieutenant Mikhail Volkov. "Captain, I'm picking up a strange signal from a nearby star system," he reported, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It doesn't match any known frequencies in our database." Sorensen moved to Volkov's station, studying the signal's waveform on the display. It was unlike anything she had encountered before, a complex pattern that seemed to pulse with an almost intelligent rhythm. Intrigued, she made a decision that would change the course of their mission and the fate of humanity itself. "Set a course for the origin of that signal," Sorensen ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "Let's find out what's out there." A world beyond imagination. As the fleet approached the star system, long-range scans revealed a sight that left the crew speechless. Orbiting a vibrant Earth-like planet was a sprawling metropolis, its towering structures gleaming beneath the light of an alien sun. The cityscape stretched across the planet's surface, a testament to a civilization far more advanced than their own. Sorensen and her crew stared in awe at the alien world, marveling at the technological wonders that lay before them. The architecture was unlike anything they had seen, seamlessly blending organic curves with geometric precision. Vast energy signatures pulsed from the heart of the city, hinting at a power source beyond human comprehension. "My God," whispered Dr. Elena Nakamura, the fleet's lead xenobiologist. "This changes everything. The implications for our understanding of the universe and our place in it are staggering." A hostile welcome. Sorensen ordered the fleet to establish a stable orbit around the planet, maintaining a safe distance as they attempted to establish contact with the alien civilization. The bridge crew worked frantically, broadcasting greetings in every conceivable language and format, hoping to open a channel of communication. Minutes turned to hours with no response from the surface. An uneasy silence settled over the fleet, broken only by the occasional chirp of the sensors and the low hum of the ship's engines. Then, without warning, a massive energy surge erupted from the planet, engulfing the fleet in a blinding flash of light. Alarms blared as the ship's shields strained under the onslaught of alien weaponry. The view screen flickered, revealing a swarm of sleek, angular craft rising from the city, their hulls bristling with advanced armaments. "Evasive maneuvers," Sorensen shouted over the chaos. "Get us out of here." The Endeavour shuddered violently as another salvo of energy beams grazed its hull. Major Avery Keene, the fleet's tactical officer, responded with a burst of the ship's defensive systems, the crackling discharge of electromagnetic pulses briefly lighting up the void. But even as the human ships returned fire, it was clear they were outmatched by the alien vessel's superior technology. Forced retreat. With hull breaches spreading like cracks in glass and casualties mounting, Captain Sorensen made the difficult decision to order a full retreat. The Endeavour, its armor scorched and pitted, limped away from the planet, the Resilience and Unity close behind. The alien craft pursued relentlessly, pummeling the human ships with a withering barrage of energy beams. In the chaos of their escape, Sorensen couldn't help but wonder what they had stumbled into. This was supposed to be a mission of peace, of discovery and understanding. Instead, they found themselves fighting for their lives against an enemy they knew nothing about. As the fleet finally broke free from the alien planet's gravity well, and entered the safe embrace of FTL. Captain Sorensen knew that their mission had taken on a new urgency. They needed to understand this advanced civilization, to find a way to communicate and prevent further bloodshed. The future of humanity might very well depend on it. But even as they set course for the nearest friendly outpost, the crew couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter had set something far greater in motion. Little did they know, their desperate fight for survival was only the beginning of a journey that would change the course of history and redefine what it meant to be human in a universe full of wonders and terrors alike. Capture and confrontation. As the battered human fleet limped through space, Captain Sorensen found herself lost in thought, grappling with the implications of their encounter. The existence of an advanced alien civilization challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe and humanity's place within it. Suddenly, a shimmering beam of light engulfed Sorensen's shuttle, ripping it away from the Endeavor. The shuttle shuddered and spun, caught in the grip of an immensely powerful tractor beam. Sorensen braced herself against the console, her heart pounding as she realized they were being drawn into the hangar bay of a massive alien vessel. The shuttle touched down with a heavy thud, and Sorensen found herself face to face with a contingent of heavily armed alien soldiers. Their angular, insectoid features and chitinous armor were unlike anything she had ever seen. At their head stood a towering figure, his compound eyes glinting with a fierce intelligence. "I am Janus, High Commander of the Zephyrian Imperium." The alien leader spoke, his voice reverberating through the hangar. "You have violated our sovereign space and attacked our people. Explain yourselves, or face the consequences." A plea for cooperation. Sorensen took a deep breath, realizing that the fate of her crew and perhaps all of humanity rested on her next words. She stepped forward, her hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "I am Captain Lena Sorensen of the Terran Stellar Coalition. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding. Our actions were a result of misunderstanding and fear, not aggression." Janus's mandibles twitched, a sign of skepticism. "Your weapons speak louder than your words, Captain. The Zephyrian Imperium has little tolerance for those who threaten our way of life." Just as tensions reached a breaking point, a deafening alarm pierced the air. The hangar erupted into a flurry of activity as Zephyrian soldiers rushed to their stations. Janus barked orders in his native language, his words laced with urgency and anger. He turned to Sorensen, his eyes narrowing. "It seems we face a common enemy. The Zorgans, a ruthless and expansionist species, have launched an invasion of our homeworld. Your arrival has coincided with their attack." An uneasy alliance. Sorensen saw an opportunity amidst the chaos. "Let us help you defend your world," she offered, her voice steady. "Our ships may be damaged, but we still have the means to fight. We can face this threat together." Janus hesitated, the weight of his decision heavy upon him. The Zephyrian way was one of isolation and self-reliance, but the scale of the Zorgan threat was unprecedented. Finally, he nodded, his mandibles clicking in assent. "Very well, Captain. We will fight as one for now. But should you betray us, the consequences will be severe." Sorensen and her team were quickly escorted to the Zephyrian Command Center, where holographic displays showed the deployment of the enemy fleet. The Zorgan ships were massive, their hulls pulsing with an eerie green light. They moved with a terrifying efficiency, systematically targeting the Zephyrian defenses. A coordinated defense. As Janus and his officers discussed strategies, Sorensen studied the battlefield, her tactical mind racing. She noticed a pattern in the Zorgan movements, a slight vulnerability in their formation. "If we can draw their fire and pull them out of position," she suggested, "your ships could flank them and target their exposed power cores." Janus considered the plan, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic display. "It's a bold strategy, Captain, but it might be our only chance. We will need to coordinate our efforts precisely." Together, the human and Zephyrian forces put their plan into motion. The Endeavor and her sister ships, still bearing the scars of their previous encounter, surged forward, drawing the Zorgon fire away from the planet. The alien ships, their hulls shimmering with advanced stealth technology, waited for their moment to strike. As the battle raged, Sorensen and Janus worked side by side, their differences forgotten in the face of a shared purpose. They watched as their ships danced a deadly ballet, the void lit by the flashes of energy weapons and the silent explosions of dying vessels. For a moment, it seemed as though their combined efforts might turn the tide. The Zorgon formation began to crumble, their ships faltering under the relentless onslaught. But just as victory seemed within reach, a second wave of enemy reinforcements dropped out of hyperspace, their numbers dwarfing the Allied forces. The Bridge of Peace. Faced with overwhelming odds, Sorensen and Janus had no choice but to order a retreat. As the human and Zephyrian ships disengaged, the weight of their losses hung heavy in the air. They had bought time, but at a terrible cost. In the aftermath of the battle, Sorensen and Janus stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, the expanse of space stretching out before them. They had fought together, bled together, and in doing so, forged a bond that transcended their differences. "This is only the beginning," Janus said, his voice heavy with the burden of leadership. "The Zorgons will not rest until they have conquered all in their path. We must find a way to stop them, or all will be lost." Sorensen nodded, her resolve unwavering. "We will find a way, Janus. Our peoples may be different, but we share a common goal, the preservation of life and the pursuit of knowledge. Together, we will face this darkness and come out stronger on the other side." As the two leaders looked out at the stars, they knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and sacrifice. But in that moment, they also saw the potential for something greater, a future where humans and Zephyrians stood together, united in the face of any challenge the universe might throw their way. The battle had been lost, but the war for the future had only just begun. And in the forging of this unlikely alliance, the seeds of hope had been planted, waiting for the chance to bloom in the light of a new dawn. The gathering storm. In the wake of their narrow escape from the Zorgon onslaught, the human and Zephyrian fleets regrouped, licking their wounds and assessing the damage. The losses had been heavy on both sides, a testament to the sheer power and ruthlessness of their common enemy. As the ships underwent hasty repairs, Captain Sorensen and Commander Janus pored over the data collected during the battle, searching for any weakness they could exploit. The Zorgon ships were technologically superior, their weapons and defenses far beyond anything the Allies had encountered before. Their power cores seemed to be their only vulnerability, Sorensen mused, studying the holographic schematics. "If we can find a way to breach their shields and target those cores directly, we might stand a chance." Janus nodded, his compound eyes glinting with a fierce determination. "Our weapons have proven ineffective against their armor, but perhaps there is another way. Our scientists have been working on a new type of energy weapon, one that could penetrate their defenses." A glimmer of hope. As the Allies prepared for the next phase of the battle, a sense of anticipation hung heavy in the air. The Zephyrian scientists worked tirelessly, refining their new weapon and adapting it for use on both human and Zephyrian ships. Meanwhile, Sorensen and Janus devised a daring plan to lure the Zorgon fleet into a trap. By using the Endeavor and her sister ships as bait, they hoped to draw the enemy ships into a carefully prepared ambush, where the Zephyrian vessels would be waiting with their new weapon. It was a risky gambit, one that could easily backfire if the timing was off by even a fraction of a second. But with the fate of both their civilizations hanging in the balance, they knew they had to take the chance. The battle rejoined. As the Zorgon fleet emerged from hyperspace, the Allied ships were ready. The Endeavor and her companions surged forward, their hulls still bearing the scars of previous engagements. They wove an intricate pattern through the void, drawing the enemy ships deeper into the trap. The Zorgon vessels, their hulls pulsing with an eerie green light, pursued relentlessly, their weapons hammering at the human ship shields. Sorensen gritted her teeth as the Endeavor shuddered under the onslaught, her crew working frantically to keep the ship together. just as it seemed the human vessels would be overwhelmed. The Zephyrian ships emerged from their hiding places, their new weapons glowing with a brilliant blue light. They struck with precision, the energy beams piercing the Zorgan shields and finding their mark in the power cores. For a moment, the void was lit with the silent explosions of dying ships, the Zorgan fleet reeling under the unexpected assault. The Allied ships pressed their advantage, targeting the enemy vessels with a relentless barrage of fire. A temporary respite. As the last of the Zorgan ships retreated, their hulls battered and sparking, a cheer went up across the Allied fleet. They had won a victory, however temporary, and bought themselves some much-needed breathing room. But even as they celebrated, Sorensen and Janus knew that this was only the beginning. The Zorgans would regroup, adapt, and come at them with renewed fury. They had to use this time wisely, to shore up their defenses and plan their next move. In the aftermath of the battle, the two leaders met once again, their faces lined with exhaustion, but their eyes shining with a newfound respect for one another. "We make a good team," Sorensen said, a wry smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Janus inclined his head, his mandibles twitching in what passed for a smile among his people. "Indeed we do, Captain, but we cannot rest on our laurels. The Zorgans will not take this defeat lightly. We must be prepared for their next move." As they looked out at the stars, the wreckage of the battle still drifting in the void, Sorensen and Janus knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous. But they also knew that they had something worth fighting for, the chance to build a future where their peoples could live in peace, freed from the shadow of the Zorgan threat. The war was far from over, but they had taken the first steps on the path to victory. And with each passing day, the bond between humans and Zephyrians grew stronger, forged in the crucible of shared struggle and sacrifice. They would face the coming storm together, united in purpose and resolute in their determination to see the dawn of a new era. For in the depths of the void, they had found something more precious than any treasure, the strength that comes from standing side by side in the face of adversity, and the knowledge that even the darkest night must yield to the light of a new day. The daring plan. In the days following their victory against the Zorgan fleet, Captain Sorensen and Commander Janus worked tirelessly to develop a new strategy. They knew that their success had been due in large part to the element of surprise, and that the Zorgans would not be caught off guard so easily again. As they pored over the intelligence gathered during the battle, an idea began to take shape. The Zorgan command ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest of the Allied ships, was the key to their enemy's power. If they could infiltrate the ship and disable its central systems, they might be able to cripple the entire Zorgan fleet. It was a daring plan, one that would require a small team of elite operatives to breach the command ship's defenses and navigate its labyrinthine interior. But Sorensen and Janus knew that they had no choice. The fate of their civilizations hung in the balance, and they had to take every chance they could get. The infiltration begins. As the Allied fleet prepared for the next phase of the battle, a small team of human and Zephyrian operatives prepared for their mission. Led by Sorensen and Janus themselves, they would infiltrate the Zorgan command ship and attempt to disable its central systems. The team boarded a small, stealthy vessel, its hull coated in a special material that rendered it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. They slipped through the Zorgan defenses, their hearts pounding as they approached the massive command ship. Once inside, they moved quickly and quietly, their weapons at the ready. The interior of the ship was a maze of twisting corridors and cavernous chambers, each one filled with the eerie green light that seemed to pervade all Zorgan technology. As they made their way deeper into the ship, they encountered resistance from Zorgan soldiers, their insectoid forms moving with a terrifying speed and agility. But the team was well-trained and well-equipped, and they fought their way through, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. The terrible truth. As they neared the ship's central control room, Sorensen and Janus made a shocking discovery. The Zorgans, it seemed, were not a single species at all, but rather a collection of races enslaved and subjugated by a ruling caste known as the Overlords. The Overlords were a terrifying sight to behold, their forms a twisted amalgam of organic and mechanical components. They sat at the heart of the Zorgan Empire, directing their armies with a cold, calculating precision. Sorensen and Janus exchanged a look of horror and disgust. The Zorgans were not just a military threat, but a blight upon the galaxy itself. They had to be stopped, not just for the sake of their own people, but for the sake of every sentient being in the universe. The choice. But as they prepared to make their final push towards the control room, Sorensen and Janus were faced with a terrible choice. They had come this far, risked everything to strike at the heart of the Zorgan Empire. But if they succeeded in disabling the command ship, they would be condemning countless enslaved races to death along with their masters. It was a moral dilemma that struck at the very core of their being. They had sworn to protect life, to defend the innocent against the darkness of the universe. But now, they were faced with the prospect of becoming the very thing they had fought against. In the end, it was Janus who made the call. "We have to do it," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. "We cannot let the Zorgans continue to enslave and oppress. We have to end this, here and now." Sorensen nodded, her eyes filled with a grim determination. They would complete their mission, and damn the consequences. The galaxy would be free, even if it meant sacrificing a part of their own souls in the process. The final push. With renewed resolve, Sorensen and Janus split their team in two. Janus would lead a group to sabotage the ship's power core, while Sorensen and the rest made their way to the control room to disable the central systems. As they fought their way through the final lines of defense, the ship shuddered and bucked beneath them, the first signs of Janus's success. But even as they neared their goal, the Overlords themselves appeared, their forms towering over the battered and bloodied operatives. The fight was brutal and desperate, a whirlwind of clashing metal and searing energy beams. Sorensen and her team fought with everything they had, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders. In the end, it was Sorensen herself who struck the final blow, her blade finding the heart of the Overlord's mechanical form. As the creature fell, the control room went dark, the ship's systems shutting down one by one. They had done it. The Zorgan command ship was crippled, its Overlords dead or dying. But even as they savored their victory, Sorensen and Janus knew that the fight was far from over. The Zorgan fleet was still up there, leaderless and desperate, and there were countless enslaved races that would need to be freed, their worlds rebuilt from the ashes of Zorgan oppression. But for now, they could rest, their bodies battered and their spirits weary. They had struck a blow for freedom, for the right of all sentient beings to live and thrive in the light of their own suns. And as they made their way back to the Allied fleet, Sorensen and Janus knew that they had forged a bond that would never be broken. They were more than just allies now, more than just friends. They were brothers and sisters in arms, united by a shared purpose and a shared sacrifice. The road ahead would be long and hard, but they would walk it together, side by side, until the galaxy was free and the light of hope shone once more in the hearts of all who called it home. The price of victory. As Sorensen and her team fought their way through the Zorgan command ship, desperation clawed at their hearts. The corridors echoed with the sounds of battle, the air thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and plasma discharge. They had come so far, sacrificed so much, but the end seemed to retreat before them like a mirage, always just out of reach. In the depths of the ship, Janus and his team were locked in their own desperate struggle. The power core was a seething mass of energy, its pulsing heart protected by layer upon layer of shielding and defensive systems. They fought with grim determination, their weapons flashing in the eerie green light as they inched their way forward, one hard-won meter at a time. Time seemed to stretch and warp around them, each second an eternity of blood and sweat and fear. They all knew the stakes, knew that failure here would mean the end of everything they held dear. And so they pushed on, driven by a fierce, unquenchable fire that burned in their souls. The final sacrifice. As Sorensen and her team neared the control room, they found themselves pinned down by a withering hail of enemy fire. The overlords had rallied their forces, and now the corridor was a kill zone, filled with the twisted forms of Zorgan soldiers and the burning wreckage of shattered equipment. Sorensen gritted her teeth, her mind racing as she sought a way forward. But before she could act, a voice crackled over the comm, filled with static and desperation. It was Janus, his words of frantic, gasping plea. "Sorensen," he cried, his voice barely audible over the roar of battle. "We're pinned down. We can't reach the power core." In that moment, Sorensen knew what she had to do. She turned to her team, her eyes blazing with a fierce, unwavering determination. "Go," she said, her voice calm and steady despite the chaos that raged around them. "Get to the control room. Finish this." And then, before anyone could stop her, she was gone, charging down the corridor towards Janus and his team, a lone figure against the might of the Zorgan horde. The battle's end. In the heart of the Zorgan command ship, Janus and his team fought with renewed vigor, their weapons flashing as they carved a path through the enemy ranks. They could feel the ship shuddering beneath their feet, the power core straining against the onslaught of their attacks. And then, just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Sorensen was there, her weapon blazing as she fought her way to Janus's side. Together, they pushed forward, their movements a dance of death and destruction, until at last they stood before the pulsing heart of the power core. With a final, desperate cry, they unleashed everything they had, pouring all of their rage and pain and hope into one last, searing blast of energy. The core shuddered and cracked, its light flickering and fading as the ship around them began to shake itself apart. And then, with a blinding flash of light and a roar that shook the stars themselves, the Zorgan command ship exploded, its fragments spinning away into the void like the petals of some monstrous flower. A new dawn. In the aftermath of the battle, the Allied fleet gathered, their ships battered and scarred, but their spirits unbroken. They had won a great victory, but the cost had been high. Many had fallen, their lives given in the defense of all that was good and just in the universe. But even as they mourned their losses, they knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. The Zorgan threat had been ended, the overlords cast down from their thrones of power. And in the wake of their defeat, a new day was dawning, a day of hope and unity and peace. Sorensen and Janus stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, their eyes fixed on the stars that stretched out before them. They had been through hell together, had seen the depths of cruelty and despair. But they had also seen the heights of courage and compassion, had witnessed the unbreakable strength of the sentient spirit. And as they looked out at the infinite expanse of the universe, they knew that their journey was far from over. There were still battles to be fought, still wrongs to be righted, but they would face them together, armed with the knowledge that no power in the cosmos could stand against the united will of free peoples. The future was theirs to shape, a canvas waiting to be painted in the colors of their dreams. And as the Allied fleet set out into the unknown, the light of a new dawn shining in their eyes, they knew that they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. For they were the guardians of the galaxy, the defenders of the weak and the innocent. And though the road ahead would be long and hard, they would walk it with pride and purpose, their hearts filled with the unquenchable fire of hope. And so, with the stars as their witness and the weight of history on their shoulders, they set out to build a new world, a world where all could live in peace and freedom, a world where the light of justice and compassion would shine forever undimmed.